We're good to go. All right. The time is 7:03 on Wednesday, April 10th, 2024, and I'd like to call the Accessory Advisory Committee meeting to order. I will start with the land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. For the agenda, may I have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by Legislative Services? All right. Mover, Allison. Are there any questions or comments on tonight's agenda? Doesn't look like any. So in favor of tonight's agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Right, that carries. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Right, for the minutes from the last meeting, may I please have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of February 14th, 2024? Oh, Allison. Thank you, Allison. Okay. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Okay, if not, then I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Oh, all right, that carries as well. We have no delegations this evening, so we can move on to matters for consideration. The first one, point 7.1, which is a memorandum from Accessibility Advisor regarding the site plan application SP 2023-05, submission number 2 for 27 Allaura Boulevard. And may I have a mover and seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion? Allison, Judith. Okay. Greg, would you like to speak to this item?
And you. Alrighty. Okay. So this is a submission number 2. So we have previously seen this plan come to committee, and on the screen and is attached where the comments there on the first column that we did discuss and we previously submitted, and then their response on the right hand side. Felt that this was relatable because it kind of makes sense to what the comments are that we're proposing to submit for the next draft, or for the second submission. Again, so the 2 comments there in the package, that we're going to have additional barrier-free spaces between units B1 and B2 to reduce that travel. So again, we are recommending to add them from the existing plan. Currently, they are responding to say they are meeting the minimum standards. They are on point number 6, that they do meet the bylaws with the spaces that they do have. However, I felt it was important to reiterate the spreading out the space to additional better serve people with disabilities in this property. The second one, a lot of the comments are done at final fit ups or at the permitting plan stage, and so they aren't appearing on the site plan as we see it. And they have noted a lot of the other things, which is understandable. I did comment on the second, number 7, questioning that second floor again with the mezzanine. How are they intending to get access to that second level, as currently there was no elevator? They did respond. It will be dealt with at, again, final permitting. And so I'm just challenging and questioning if the construction at that point will be feasible, should the need arise. According to the building code, any property 4 stories and above must require an elevator. So anything below that, according to the building code, does not. So again, we're just questioning if there is a need, if they would be putting it in at that point. So those are the only 2 comments that are being submitted. Just for reference, there it is. Just for reference, I'll show you the site plan package again, just so that the comments make a little bit more sense. Okay, so this is the property here overall. We do have the 2 barrier-free spaces in the middle of building A, which is great. And then we have the 3 barrier-free spaces on the one end of building B. So again, I am recommending that somewhere down here towards these first unit 1 and 2, we have that additional space, as the travel currently is from one end of the building all the way along this path of travel around the corner and all the way down should somebody need to get into unit 1. So it is quite a bit of distance to travel. So that is where that recommendation again sits. Even moving one of those spaces over, would suffice, a building perspective at a minimum standard. They can add 2 additional ones. That would be great. So we'll see what they say when they come back. And then on drawings, again, these are the individual units, but every unit is divided and has a staircase up to that mezzanine level, which is that second level. So every unit is the same in both building A and building B. Frontage of the building is pretty standard. We've again seen this in a lot of the buildings, especially in that area. On Allaura, they all are looking similar. And then they all have warehouse garages out in the back. The good thing about this one, there isn't stairs out in the back. They are all level, which is good to see, but we'll see at when it's finally built if that ends up being the case. And I believe that's it.
Does the committee have any questions or comments on this item? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to clear up what you just said about the levels if they were above the roof lights up. That means though that we're not giving accessibility to people who need it. And I just wonder, because I know the stackable apartments over at Yonge and Wellington, that I questioned that a way back, and they didn't have them either. They didn't even have one on the end of the wall, so they could go up to the levels. And I don't know, it just, to me, we're trying to accommodate people and yet we're still leaving them out.
I don't disagree. Unfortunately, as the minimum, the building code, and ultimately, should an applicant, challenge the standard, they will go back to what is written in the standard. And so all we can kind of work towards and hope, I mentioned it a few meetings ago. Unfortunately, it is delayed in the process, but the design of public spaces review has been complete. We're just waiting for public consultation with the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility. And a lot of those recommendations towards updating the building code are put forward. So if those do get approved in the near future, we will see a change in that requirement. At this point, we can recommend and highly recommend, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the next plan might have the same issue with access. But it also depends on, again, they did comment on it. We'll figure that out at final fit up. So depending on what is going in those units and what that purpose of that mezzanine level is for, you know, if it is a maintenance level, those are not required to be accessible, whether it's above ground or below ground. So right now, even in the AODA, that's not a requirement. So
can we not, I know we have to meet codes and we have to meet things and stuff like that, but can we not go above in some instances to make living an easier place for people that have these disabilities of some sort? And why could we not at least try to do it, which means it's encouragement to somebody to continue doing it?
So in terms of these, the private applications that are coming through, we, again, as an advisory committee, we advise, we recommend, as the accessibility advisor, you know, I do the same. Ultimately, this comes down to our building officials and staff and our planning staff, and they do follow the Planning Act and the building code. That is their jobs. What we can do here is, again, recommend, highly recommend, but at the end of the day, we can't force or require anyone. There's no way we can enforce it once it happens, if it is ignored. So it would ultimately, and funny you say that, because I did have a conversation with the ministry this morning about such topic. And all we can do is hope that standards change sooner than later, and then we can start to see some of that change be implemented in our plans. From my understanding, some of those changes are being requested to be retroactive. So applicants that aren't taking some of these recommendations may be required in the near future to go back and fix them, which would cost additional money.
And also affect the building they'd already built.
Correct.
Also it's also an equity issue because in the times that we're in with housing crises, if you're a person with a disability, the inventory is much less for you than it would be for other people. If you can't get up to the third floor or the second floor of a building, you would only have access to the first floor, and if they're not available, that whole building is not available to you. So it's an equity issue as well.
So Greg, on that note about the meeting those standards, are these applications, just as a general question, are they to the 2025 standard or are they to current standards? So I know there's that push for ADA compliance in the near future. Are they meeting current standards or are they meeting that future standard?
They are currently meeting current standards, which is 2017.
Right.
Until that changes,
So that changes.
there won't be an ability to enforce.
Right. I was wondering, not necessarily on the enforcement side, but whether some builders were being sort of having some foresight in realizing that deadline is coming up very quickly. Costs more though. So.
The other thing that we looked into recently with the AODA, it doesn't mention anything really to do with the interior of the building. A lot of it is exterior, path, travel, parking, access, public spaces, that sort of thing. So all we can really do, again, when we're talking about elevators and interiors of buildings, really it is recommendations at this point, because the AODA doesn't cover those internal. Universal design standards do. However, they're not part of the AODA yet. We're crossing our fingers.
With the Voices of Joy, we belong to we just rent space in a church in Newmarket. And they've gone they started out just having coverage for people to get into the building by having a separate parking lot and having them come in, and they've had it this way for years. But when you come in and you want to get up to the next floor, you can't get down to the first floor to the lobby or anything, and you can't get in that way. So they just installed the neatest, looks like a closet, but it's open at the top and everything. And they just put it there, and they've got keys, and you open it up and you put the key in and you go up to the next level. And it's just like, we've got a young man in a wheelchair and he's really challenged. We've got another man that's 88 years of age and he's blind. And we've got all these different people and, different capabilities. And it's interesting to see how they manage it and what they do with it. But the way they had it before, they realize now that people have to go downstairs to get the elevator and they have to go upstairs the other way. And so they put in this thing, and it's really neat. And I was just surprised that, they went ahead and did that. They're very outstanding that way, so.
My doctor's office is like that.
Yeah.
We had to take the stairs down to get the elevator to go up.
Yeah, I know, that's the way this was too.
Any further comments or questions from the committee? Right, if there are no further comments, I'll call the vote on this item. All in favor? And any opposed? All right, that carries. So on to item 7.2, which is another memo from Accessibility Advisor regarding the site plan application SP 2023-08, submission number 2 for 90 Engelhard Drive. And may I have a mover and seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion? Allison is the mover. And Joanne is seconder. All right, so Greg, would you like to speak to this item?
Alrighty. So again, this is a second submission. The committee did see this originally. We'll quickly go through it again. But similarly, the comments that we did submit on our first submission there, questioning the passenger elevator to that second level. And again, they did provide further clarity at this point that that is a mechanical service area. And therefore there won't be a passenger elevator in that case. So that is towards the first comment that was submitted, appreciating that response and that clarity here. And then basically recommending, should the need of that mezzanine level change, we are recommending that elevator to be installed at that point. So these other items, again, a lot of those items, again, at permitting stage, are where a lot of these items are looked into. And so again, all we can do, because we don't see building permit processes, so we don't see what the interior buildings look like, is we can recommend that at this point. And I am working with staff to figure out how we can better support and align accessibility with some of these applications moving forward. So we'll see where that changes and looks like. But then one other further consideration that wasn't listed here, which I noticed that they did move a parking spot. And that other comment there is creating an access aisle from the parking spaces that were there. Sorry, Zoom controls are taking my screen and I don't want to disappear. Thank you. There it is. So they have the existing building on the left there. They are building the expansion on the right. At this point, they did have the barrier-free spots here. They are moving them across the way here. So they are removing this curb to accommodate for an additional barrier-free spot. Additional spaces are great. And so that second comment is that consideration to continue this access aisle across the street onto the sidewalk, which is just paint on the ground. So that is where that recommendation consideration is for this plan.
Does the committee have any questions or comments on this item? Online?
Oh. Or when I share the screen, we can't see you online.
If there's no comments on that item, then you can call the vote. All in favor? And any opposed? Appear to be, so that carries. So on to item 7.3, memo from Accessibility Advisor regarding site plan application SP 2023-14. Submission number 1, 180, sorry, Addison Hall Circle. May have a mover and seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion. Allison moves. And seconds, right. Greg, would you like to speak to this item?
All right, we'll go. So this one and the next one are our first submission, so there'll be a little more in depth at this point. So again, we'll just I'll read out the recommendations that we're proposing moving forward, and then we'll go through all 3 of the attachments in the plans, so you can kind of see the opportunities or the items here. Tactile indicators at the staircases, indoors and outdoors, as we do have both around this facility. Door openers at all public access areas. Exterior path of travel, ensuring that there is the 1,500 millimeters of distance, and there is going to be an area that does kind of choke off. So I just wanted to have that clarity. Which I'll show you in a minute. Consideration to have outswinging doors at the barrier-free washrooms, consideration for the evacuation chairs at the staircases, and consideration for induction loop or an accessibility spot, and an accessibility spot at the customer service counter that they are proposing. So we'll go through this. This is a warehouse type unit. So there is limited office spaces. So our barrier-free spots, we do have the 3 at the front of the entrance, which does meet the minimum requirements. Again, we have the 2 entrances right in front of those spaces, which is great. Only the 2 office spaces would be available to the public at that point, and then you have the full warehouse towards the back. Inside the building, so if we turn the building around here, so you see all the rows kind of in the back of the warehouse there. That's again just the setup of the warehouse. In the front here, we do have the office spaces. Let me zoom that in. So they are virtually mirrored on both sides. So you have your vestibule coming in to the building, turning around, you will have your reception area. We don't know if there'll be a desk there or not. And then down this little hallway, we do have the barrier-free washroom that is being proposed with the inward swinging door. Again, it does look like there's room for an out swinging door, so we'll see. And then the corridor with some office spaces before you move into the warehouse here. And this is again, the mezzanine level, which we'll see what gets put up there, but just like the other plans as well, typically this would be storage or mechanical for the items that are below. And then look of the building. So this is where my one comment on path of travel does come in. As you can see, we do have the sidewalk, but then you have these protruding items in the side of the building. So I am questioning and ensuring that the path of travel is is that 1,500 millimeters or 1.5 meters from those protrusions out the wall to the edge of the sidewalk as well. So that's what kind of triggered me to look at that and comment on that. And then these are just the two sides of the building, which are pretty straightforward and flat. So if we come back to this plan, you can kind of see these little outlets that kind of jet out, which are in line with that outside feature of the look of the wall. I'm just ensuring that this path, it does say right here, 1.5 meters from the wall to the sidewalk, but then you have these protrusions. So just to ensure that those protrusions are also 1.5 meters away. And that's it. Pretty straightforward facility here.
Right, does the committee have any comments or questions on this item? Great, could you go back to the flipped view, like the sort of interior layout one? The vestibules is what I was looking at. I guess there's enough space there. I just often find those are the hardest to navigate with any sort of mobility device. I wonder if those doors, the exterior doors, could be on the opposite side. So you have more of a right angle to turn. So that's a very, it's hard to read the scale, but they're only a couple meters, right? Looks like
Just under 2 meters.
If you know what I mean, if that exterior door could be on there in the middle rather than on the sides, I wonder if that would make it easier to navigate.
We can see if something can be done. Also, expanding the vestibule could also help.
Sure.
I'm looking at it, then the two doors would be, swinging into each other.
Yes.
At that point. So I'm sure they wanted that space between the two units.
Yeah.
So that might be the reason for how they have it listed, but I will comment on spacing.
It's not a major thing. I just find, especially navigating with like a large, with a chair or stroller or something, it's difficult to get around those bends. And the washroom as well, I think. Yeah, you mentioned already. There's lots of space to have the door swing out.
Yeah. This is a good one. There is a lot of space in this one compared to some of the other ones we've seen.
Yeah.
So that was good. So if it stays an in-swinging door, at least there's still more space.
Yeah, they could
compared
even,
to some of the other
they
ones.
could even jog the door, like have a small, almost like a vestibule there as well. Like I guess with a single door on it, but jog the doors down a little bit.
Another thing to me that is the parking. I know we have how many spots we need for handicap parking compared to the spots that we have and everything like that. But another thing I don't think is being thought of is that our community is aging. And more people are getting handicap stickers, for one thing, to use if they want to park somewhere. And I just feel that when I've gone places, like especially a medical building, and it's got 2 spots at the front of the whole building and all around the building's parking, and they've got 2 spots available. And they've got 1 spot for a doctor who's in a wheelchair, and that's reserved. And other than that, we have 2 spots at the whole thing. And then at each side where the sidewalks are, they have no ramps. And I don't know, when they're thinking about these things, why they wouldn't put ramps on the end of the thing so people could get up out of the parking lot, because you hit the curb, there's a huge. And I've thought of it so many, as a matter of fact, I've gone into the administrative offices in the one building and said, I thought some thought could maybe be given to this. They've never changed it in all the years I've been going there. And there's parking all the way around the building, completely all the way around the building. And they've got 2 spots at the front. Yeah, that's it. And it just, to me, doesn't seem to measure up. It doesn't measure up at all.
So again, with this building in particular is warehouse usage. So we do have limited office and meeting space and then a large
Well,
warehouse.
you
in
have
the back.
boardrooms, though. There's boardrooms.
Yep.
Yep.
So you know, for the staff that are there, some of the other buildings we have commented on those. Again, every time we're going above and beyond that standard, they are considerations and recommendations that we can put forward. And then, you know, it would be up to the applicant and therefore the tenants and that to implement and manage, you know, for that future. Some of the buildings that are already in existence, you know, don't need to change at this point until they are virtually being totally gutted, demolished and rebuilt, or are new builds. Any of the existing buildings that are inaccessible until legislation changes, they will stay that way until renovations
I
happen.
think the town, though, should, in some instances, take some initiative to upgrade some of these parking spots. I have a handicap parking spot, but I will park in another spot if I have the way to get there, you know, like I'm not 6 miles away and I'm going uphill all the way or something like that. But I won't park right by the door because I leave it for somebody else. But the thing is, I just think that they're not thinking about it. You know, the town to me should be making them meet. Like if I get out, I go to this one place and I get out of the car and I'm not near the handicap parking spots, I'm not near the doors, I have to walk across the parking lot and all past the sidewalk because I can't manage to get up on the curb without having assistance or somebody there on my elbow. And the thing is, I have to walk all the way down to the front door where there's a ramp. And that each curb is at the end of the building and not one of them's ramped. And I just don't see the thinking. It's not there.
So again, the town staff and our bylaw officers would not have that jurisdiction on those private properties, right? So it would be those recommendations to property owners. In a lot of cases, those property owners just own the building and live elsewhere. I hear it from our community a lot as well, that the tenants are trying to work with the owners, but nothing seems to get done. And again, in a lot of cases, it's not the tenant that has that concern. The tenant would be willing to do it. It's the owner of the facility and the building.
No, there's
For
problems
our,
all the way around, but
for our municipal spaces, anything that the town does own, we will be going through a parking review study. And I have been told that this committee will be seeing that parking review for any municipally owned parking spaces. And so at our rec complexes, street parking, that sort of thing, we will be doing a full review of those spaces on and off street. So when the time comes, I have taken a look at the first procurement draft, and this committee is one of the interested parties involved that will be reached out to discuss that. But again, those are for the parking spaces we own. And that work is being done later this year into next.
Oh, Allison. Yeah, Allison, sorry, couldn't see you.
That's okay. Just on the door comment with the vestibules. If I go in and then I have to open another one in, it's actually the inside door that bothers me more. And I'm wondering if that can swing out instead of in, but perhaps it can't. And then I look at the kitchenette and I see a counter really close to where the door is. So I would have to, like anybody's mobility device would have to be so tiny and fit that width of between the counter space and the door opening to navigate. Like that door just, I don't know what can be done in that space, but just flagging that as awkward, right? I look at the spaces not designated as accessible, but any other space I might go into. Yeah.
Shift the counters and sinks down towards the other end of the room.
Yeah,
I
Probably.
will- Yeah, we can, again, like I said, we can definitely put that recommendation in. There was one other thing that I did note we didn't talk about is the width of this hallway leading
Mhm.
into that barrier-free spot. I just want to check that width to see if 1.1 meters is wide enough or if it should be wider. So I'm going to double check that before submitting those comments as well.
I was going to ask exactly that. I'd see that 1,100 all over the place. I think that's the fire code number, right? 30
It
inches.
probably is a minimum
I
requirement.
believe it is, yeah.
But maybe path of travel's 1.5.
So
Right,
This-
we're looking at, 0.4 of a meter less. So yeah, I will double check that as well.
And the reception area is quite large and then the corridors are quite narrow, it looks like.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the fire code number.
It looks like it, yeah.
Are there any further comments or questions on this item? If not, and we'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, so we're on to 7.4, right? This regarding the site plan application SP 2024-01. This is submission number 1 for 7 Lacey Court. I have a mover and seconder to put this item on the floor for discussion. Allison. Yeah. All right, Greg, would you like to speak to this item?
So again, we'll review the comments. So this is a subdivision plan that is before us. The site there you can see on Wellington, just east of Bathurst. There is the place of worship that is there with a bunch of grassy area along Wellington, and that is the property that we are looking at. Again, because this is a subdivision, comments are a little bit different, but we want to ensure that accessible curb ramps are there when we cross path of travel, accessible curb ramps aligning with pedestrian crossings, with the truncated domes and detection warning surface. I'm also recommending that there is at least one barrier-free parking space in the visitor area. It doesn't appear to be so on the plan. We want just a generic comment that snow storage doesn't interfere with that spot when it does get installed. And then, of course, as with all subdivisions, we are considering to offer accessible housing for that community. If steps can be taken to lower grade, remove steps and other barriers if that's possible. So again, on the screen, we do have the property. So existing zoning. So it would be right in the front here is where we are looking for that, the housing. Oops. Sorry. This is the proposed, so right now we are only looking at the, I guess, west side of the lots. But this is kind of that proposal of overall. So we very well might see the east side of the lot in a future application. But right now we are looking at these blocks of townhouses right here. So again, this is coming off of Wellington Street, coming straight into the subdivision. There is an existing sidewalk, so they're continuing that sidewalk into the subdivision. Again, the accessible curb ramps are not visible on this plan. As we zoom in closer, just that curb kind of just continues. There is no real break in the plan, so just ensuring that does look like there's going to be a crosswalk here. So to ensure, again, that the curb ramps are there, the domes are there, the detection surfaces, and that sort of thing. There are 7 visitor spaces that are lined up here. None are designated as barrier-free. So we are recommending at least the one in that space. And then there is no snow storage listed on this, so unsure where the snow is going to be. So just to ensure that if they have designated where that snow storage is going to be, that it does not interfere with that barrier-free spot. And that is all for this property. Oh, sorry. This is the other view that we have with spaces. So every unit does come with one driveway space and one garage space. So there are 2 spaces per unit. So if they have one vehicle, of course, they can park on the driveway as well for their visitors. And then this is what the townhomes will look like. This is the back of the homes and then the front of the homes as well. So it does look, due to grade, there will be those steps to see if they can work with that. However, these renderings don't have those same steps in them. So I'm not sure which one is correct, if it's the rendering or this of the site plan drawings, but this one doesn't show those same stairs to come in.
200 Wellington Street West is where, between the high school and Bathurst?
Yes, so yeah, the Aurora High School, it would be east of the Aurora High School on the north side of Wellington.
The apartments across from the high school are 145, I know that.
Yeah, it'd be east of the high school.
This is where that church is set back a little from the road.
West of the high school,
Right.
yes. Yeah, they have a development across the street currently. There's a development of putting homes on the south side. It would be directly on the north side.
Cut through the back way.
Does the committee have any comments on this item?
It's here.
I had one minor one about that pathway running next to the visitor spaces.
Mhm.
Does it connect to anything on the north there? So it comes off of Wellington and runs north. Does it connect into Lacey Court?
So Wellington would be here, we
Yeah.
would come around.
Yeah.
And there'd be a crosswalk here
Uh,
and then go to the end of the visitor spaces. You
and
have your visitor spot, you come onto the sidewalk and then be able to travel.
what's to the north of it there? That's the parking lot
That's
for
the
the
parking lot for
for the church. Okay. Would it be possible to connect that pathway to that parking lot? So someone could,
I'm not sure they want to. Maybe different owners.
but if someone is
So it
using
does say
it,
severance line, so I don't know if they're gonna put a fence there, at which point it wouldn't be possible. It also doesn't show that there's no street parking. So there very well does look like space between the 2 doorways here. You know, there could be space to also do street parking.
the only other thing would be for the location of the accessible space.
Mhm.
To avoid the snow issue, probably the southernmost one would be best.
The same, yep.
There might even be room for one more there. It looks like, if they could fit one. I don't know what the regulations are around the minimum distance from like a,
For residential, there is,
right. It looks like there's enough space for actually one with a aisle next to it, to be honest. An additional space to the south.
even extending that curb
Yeah.
out a little bit, could
Yeah.
fit that, yeah.
But
I
yeah, the
can add that.
northern spot is the one that's the snow is gonna get dumped in, I would
Most
imagine.
likely, yeah.
Usual spots that most of them dump it in town, there's a handicap parking spot.
Usually, yeah. Are there any further comments on this item? Allison's?
Sorry.
Does there need, oh,
I'll bring it back. Sorry, Allison.
That's okay. I'm just wondering, like, does there not need to be a sidewalk on one of the two sides of the road? Like once you turn and it says fire route?
Yeah, down here, you mean?
Yeah.
I
Should there
am
not?
I'm not sure. I can look into that. I don't. I'll look into that. I'm not sure.
Well, even just for
Just
the
imagine all the
homeowners,
kids, right? I just imagine kids playing in the street. They need a
Walk
sidewalk.
down the road, they have to walk on the road.
and if you're not in the blocks on the western house, you have to walk on the road to get to your door.
So we're looking at 6, 7, 8, and 9, really.
Yeah.
Which would then connect to the future development on the other side.
Mhm. Which it shows one
There's no
there, right?
sidewalk.
In front of, oh, that's not a sidewalk in front of block 1.
No, that's the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's strange to build a road and not put a sidewalk.
Yeah, the sidewalk goes to the visitor spot. You know what? Now that I look at this, I'm pretty sure we've seen this already. I think this has already been approved. I do recall looking at this layout a while ago, maybe last year.
Yeah, it says
Something.
approved at the bottom.
Something like this.
The EP zone was approved. I don't know if the whole, it looks very familiar, this one, now that I look at it. So this would be this is the other option. So we're not going to see the east side. We've already seen the east side. Yeah, there's no sidewalk on that side either. So I'll look into that for you, Allison. Again, this is not really accessibility. This is just a good thing to have, right?
Yeah, but anyone with a device, yeah, they'd be basically forced out into the road if they were at any house except the one on the end.
Yeah.
Although they'd have stairs to their door when they got there
Means
anyway,
everybody
so.
would be forced out onto the road, so everybody would.
Are there any further comments on that item? Right, if not, then we'll call the vote on that one. All in favor? And any opposed? Right, brings us to 7.5, the roundtable discussion regarding the Town of Aurora multi-year accessibility plan. May I have a mover and seconder to put this item on the floor discussion. Allison and Haley. Greg, would you like to speak to this item?
So I throughout today's meeting, I did kind of touch on a few things here. So I'll just kind of bring them all back together at this point. The parking study is a big one. I may have mentioned it at previous meetings, but I did have conversations with our engineering team who is looking into that and who is responsible for that project. Again, we are focusing on town parking. So these are on and off street parking in and around all our owned facilities, as well as specific parking studies at, I believe it's the Stronach Aurora Recreation Complex and want to say the senior center, if I'm not mistaken. And those are the other two that are kind of going in line with that. So that is coming along with work in our downtown promenade. So if you may have heard, but we are looking to renovate the infrastructure under the ground at Yonge and Wellington. So south of Wellington, north of, I believe it's Kennedy. That strip of Yonge Street is municipally owned. So that is our responsibility to do. that project has been in the works for quite a few years now, and it's finally time that we look at it. So there are many task force and groups for A, the businesses in that space, B, to look at accommodations in terms of travel in and around that space. And it sounds like, again, once the work is more finalized and a plan is put forward, this committee is going to be part of that consultation, and an interested party that they will be coming to this group to discuss some of those changes. As once we rip apart Yonge Street, we have an opportunity to update and fix that strip of property. So, you know, what can be done with some of those inaccessible businesses that are there? What can we do with the sidewalk area? Street lamps, do we increase, do we decrease? What ends up happening with that space? All of that is up to the future with the consultant once they are brought on, and that work that is coming. So that is coming. I believe it would be later this year, if not next, where we would have some input at that point. Talked about Bark in the downtown town square. Just an update. I know that the manager of cultural services, Phil Rose, did come to showcase that space. I believe it was late last year, if I'm not mistaken. That space is close to completion. I know he did mention that they'll look into quite a few things. A lot of the plans were done, developed, and moved forward prior to our accessibility design standards as well. So, you know, I haven't had a chance to walk through that space. I've seen pictures, but I will be looking for a tour myself in the next little while, just so I can, now that it's more finished, I can see where some of the fixtures are and some of the placements are. Before there weren't even stairs. It was kind of all boarded ramps that I was trying to navigate through, and I could see right through the whole building. So now at least we can have some more of that knowledge and look. So that is coming. Opening for that space is towards the end of this year, in Q4, I believe September into October is where we're slated to open that facility. So stay tuned on that. I did allude to it earlier today, but I did have a conversation with the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility today, with their compliance department as well, with us in the town to just figure out our compliance plan that was submitted. As we discussed, we submitted a non-compliance this year, mainly due to web accessibility, as has quite a few hundred other municipalities in the province. So it's understandable, and it was a great conversation I had. We're still looking into it, and hopefully next month I can provide an update on the direction of that. And it does look like we may be resubmitting our compliance, but we'll stay tuned for that in May. On top of that, National Accessibility Week, we did bring up a few items last meeting, which was almost 2 months ago now. And I have been hard at work to take some of the suggestions and feedback that was presented. And the biggest suggestion was the video series that was brought up. And we are looking to create that video series with our community members. We're going to start small with 2 individuals, and then we are going to expand for future videos. We are not going to do them monthly at this point due to time, resource, and availability of staff to put these together. But our goal will be to create, I would like to create at least 2 for the remainder of this year, if not 3, and roll them out every quarter throughout this year into next. And hopefully, I believe, Peter, you did comment on it to get our community involved. And if we can see that uptake and we can get those videos out on social media, then hopefully we can have more individuals in our community with disabilities to come forward as a lot of our public consultation for anything to do really with disabilities has been very lacking and limited in our community. So we're hoping that we can get our community to get out there more and really showcase that there are people with disabilities that do live in our community. And this is ultimately the goal here, is to show what the town is doing and working towards for accessibility, and having individuals in our community speak to that. So stay tuned on that. I am working with 2 members now. One will be on employment and staffing in the town of Aurora, and the other we're looking to do is with our trails, which leads me into the next conversation. That process with that project with Access Now, assessing our trails, is moving. I did get a unofficial thumbs up from our procurement department that we are looking good, and we've checked all our boxes to move forward with that project. As I've been pushing for that, and I'm hoping, as the weather now getting nicer and once the rain stops, end of April, beginning of May, we can start that project. And at that point, we'll definitely, I will be emailing this committee should you all want to attend. And hopefully by that time, I'll have a more concrete plan of days and times and locations where it happened to be near your house and you wanted to join us along the tour. Access Now will be more than happy to have our community members involved. So that is that. I'm crossing my fingers that we're good to go, that we can start that in May. It's going to take quite a few months to complete. But that's on the go. And training, you all completed the, I almost want to put it in air quotes, but the training for this committee, which was reviewing our policies in our webpage at this point. But I have been told that the province, which hosts the Access Forward training online, was providing changes to that. It's been over a year and nothing's been done with that. So we've decided to relook at our process and moving forward. Any new staff, committee members, and volunteers, part-time, full-time, will be going through the new training modules, which would be with Access Forward. And later this year, I'm going to be presenting it to our management team and our leadership team, but we will be getting all existing staff to go through, at least I'll be proposing that we'll get all our existing staff that have already completed the training for staff to redo accessibility training. And we would like to see anywhere from 1 to 2 years, you've been here every year or every other year, to do a refresher training for accessibility, not just do it once when you start and 20 years later you're still here and you haven't done anything for training wise. So we want to see an ongoing training process moving forward. So that is something to come, something that I am working on. And again, the Access Forward training is put on by the province. So should standards change, they would be updating that training module. We are working on a learning management system where those modules can be embedded into our own system moving forward as well. So when that gets implemented, it would be a smooth transition there. And that's about it, I think I have for the.
Any questions or comments on this item? I had a quick one about the trails review. Is if we're looking to join and be part of it when it comes by, are there things, particular things to look for? So when we're out there sort of thinking about what feedback to give to this group, aside from, surfaces and so on the trails, anything else that's sort of wouldn't be immediately necessarily apparent that might be an accessibility barrier. Usually in my case, it's width, surface, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, what, and I'll take the experience that we had with Access Now in our facilities. But it is a more of a universal design approach that they do look at, so not necessarily the AODA 5 or 6 points with outdoor public spaces that are listed in the AODA, but it goes farther beyond that. They will look at benches and signage and shrubs and trees and bushes and heights and type of path from paved to gravel to dirt and tripping hazards and that sort of thing.
grade.
Also, grading, contrasts, what other amenities, path to those amenities, garbage receptacles, you name it, that are along the way. Also busyness, depending on the day, we may have a lot of our trails may be between houses or not necessarily in our forests or parks, right? So, and also connection points from one path to another, crossing streets and intersections. They will lay out all of those on the platform itself as well. So if there is a stone block that happens to be there with no backrest, they'll label that as partially accessible. If there's no space beside those blocks, little things like, things like that, not necessarily little, but those will be kind of commented on as well. I guess it depends on the day and it depends on how the weather acts with us. If there's enough, again, shade and travel and proximity to washrooms and that sort of thing. So there'll be a lot kind of involved. My first kind of assessment with them was, I mouth shut, observed, absorbed it all. Second assessment, I start to see a little bit more. By the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, I think on the eighth one, I was doing all the work and calling all these things out because you see it over and over and over again. As you see one trail, you see it in all the trails, and that was my experience through that process. But again, this is the outdoor amenities.
Right.
With our indoor spaces, again, we're looking at more of our historic buildings, our heritage buildings, those that even some of them aren't even accessible. But what I want is that complete roster of all our town assets to be on there, just so that if we are running a program in Victoria Hall, individuals can make that can look at it ahead and make that decision if that is a program or a service that they may want to attend or a meeting or whatever the case is. Town Square, along with the public library and the cultural center, are 3 of those buildings. So once Town Square opens, all the construction leaves, we will be assessing all 3 of those buildings along with Victoria Hall. They're all in that same area. So those are 4 of the 7 that we'll be doing today, later this year.
Thanks. Do you know if the other York Region municipalities are doing the same thing?
So in terms of facilities, King, Stouffville, East Gwillimbury, Georgina have all contacted me, and York Region themselves have contacted me to speak about the project and what's involved and the looks and the benefits. I'm not sure if they ended up doing it or not. I do know since we've done ours, Metrolinx has also done it. So the Aurora Metrolinx location is verified at the GO station, which is good. So Metrolinx has done all of their facilities as well. I do know that Richmond Hill has done their trails already. So all of the Richmond Hill trails are assessed and on the platform. I know that the regional trails have been deemed accessible. I'm not sure if they're on Access Now or not.
Okay.
But I do know that the region has 2 or 3 trails, if I'm not mistaken.
3 or 4, I think.
Yeah, there's a handful.
Yeah, that are under kind of regional jurisdiction, but those have been looked at and assessed, I believe, through the regional AAC.
Okay.
But that's all I'm.
Great, thanks.
Locally.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Well, if there's no further comments, we can,
I have a quick one.
oh, sorry, yes.
I promise to be quick. I'd love at some point while we do this trails assessment to have some kind of marketing campaign or something to explain to our community why access and trails is important, because I see a number of Facebook groups pop up every time someone sees like a paved path through a trail. They cry environmentalism, and that often conflicts with accessibility. I digress. I think some awareness of why, yes, we're going to pave this because more people can use it. Some awareness.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Allison, because that is the second part of that first video that I would like to do, is to talk about, and I've actually reached out to a former member of the committee, Max, because I know he was part of our other assessments in our facilities, and to say he happens to be back in town around that time. And I would like him to discuss exactly that, why having accessible trails is important in our community, and why it matters to him. And then, of course, also showcasing that we are in the process of doing that assessment. So I want to align it all together. And I'm also working with communications to do a media release to say this is coming. So if you come, if you see us in our community, come say hi, kind of thing. And we will be doing a piece on that out to our news outlets. I'm hoping that we can also invite our local media to also come out and do a piece on that and what Aurora is doing locally. So Access Now actually encourages it. They do recommend it. So we'll see what we can do, and if anyone's available to come out to take those pictures and write that piece for us.
And I think as a town, we should be also saying in that note about what we're doing, that we're looking to the community to put forward their thoughts and their thinking on the issues. Because there's enough people around who have many issues themselves, so they could contribute. Whether it's something we end up doing, but they can contribute to it.
Yep, we can do that as well. I can add that.
Yeah, there may be some very specific issues, like a particular spot in a trail that's a problem for one family or several people.
And our thoughts might be quite different than family thoughts and what they do with their children and whatever.
Mm-hmm. And along that note, again, I think I was hoping to get it done for this past special event in Hello Spring. We didn't get around to it just due to the tight timelines. But again, having the accessible paths and would lead into kind of that next video idea. And I'm already looking forward to our next option of accessibility in our some of our special events and some of the things that we are doing in our special events to be more accessible. From Haley, your comment last year with the sensory tents, that those we've implemented, the Moby mats at Ribfest to help navigate along the grass in that area, the accessibility that we've included in Shepherd's Bush to try to get into those huts that currently have steps and rocks. Although temporary, we are putting steps in place to try to accommodate individuals. And again, this past Haunted Forest, we did have quite a few comments of praise for putting those ramps in, mainly moms with strollers. But again, it's universal, exactly, right? And so those ramps that we did purchase a couple of years ago are being well used and being transported around all our areas where 1 to 2 steps are needed. Those ramps are being deployed. So we are looking at that. And again, as I mentioned, Early last year, we did outfit the Petros with the queue ramp inside of that as well to make that building a little more accessible for that event. But moving forward, I caught wind that that building is being looked at to be upgraded and renovated as a space for mainly for weddings. So that floor will be elevated and accessibility will be then looked at as part of the update to that building. It's still in the process of figuring out what it's actually going to do and look like. But at this point, where we can, we're trying to
What building's this?
right behind the Aurora Senior Center, the wooden house,
Oh, yes, okay.
the pet shops.
Right. Any further comments on this item? Right, if not, then we'll call the vote. All in favor? Right, and no opposed, so that carries. We have no informational items, but does anyone have any new business? Anyone? With that then, may I have a motion to adjourn? A mover and a seconder. Moved by Allison, seconded by Lois. All right. That carries as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.